Jaya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parirajakacharya Stotar Shat Shrishmat. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaura Premanande. I'm confused whether I should say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya or Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. I guess I'm just going to go with the normal thing that we do, because actually that Jaya Jaya verse is in the verses that we're reading anyways, so we're going to end up saying both. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayad Nashta Prayashta Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Reading from Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Ādi-līlā, chapter 4. We just began the chapter, and so I'm going to read the chapter summary, and then we're going to read the first 6 verses. Okay, so do we, yeah? Yeah. Chapter 4, the confidential reasons for the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this chapter of the epic Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has stressed that Lord Chaitanya appeared for 3 principal purposes of his own. The first purpose was to relish the position of Srimati Radharani, who is the prime reciprocator of transcendental love of Sri Krishna. Lord Krishna is the reservoir of transcendental loving transactions with Srimati Radharani. The subjects of those loving transactions is the Lord himself, and Radharani is the object. Thus, the subject, the Lord, wanted to relish the loving mellow in the position of the object, Radharani. The second reason for his appearance was to understand the transcendental mellow of himself. Lord Krishna, can we actually, someone check the video on the YouTube, make sure that sound is coming? Yesterday, there was an issue, there was no sound. Okay. Radharani's attraction for Krishna is sublime, and to experience that attraction and understand the transcendental sweetness of himself, he accepted the mentality of Radharani. Thank you. The third reason that Lord Chaitanya appeared was to enjoy the bliss tasted by Radharani. The Lord thought that undoubtedly Radharani enjoyed his company, and he enjoyed the company of Radharani, but the exchange of transcendental mellow between the spiritual couple was more pleasing to Srimati Radharani than to Sri Krishna. Radharani felt more transcendental pleasure in the company of Krishna than he could understand without taking her position. But for Sri Krishna to enjoy in the position of Srimati Radharani was impossible, because that position was completely foreign to him. Krishna is the transcendental male, and Radharani is the transcendental female. Therefore, to know the transcendental pleasure of loving Krishna Lord Krishna himself appeared as Lord Chaitanya, accepting the emotions and bodily luster of Srimati Radharani. Lord Chaitanya appeared in order to fulfill these confidential desires and also to preach the special significance of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and to answer the call of Advaita Prabhu. These were secondary reasons. Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami was the principal figure among Lord Chaitanya's confidential devotees. The records of his diary have revealed these confidential purposes of the Lord. These revelations have been confirmed by the statements of Srila Rupa Goswami in his various prayers and poems. This chapter also specifically describes the difference between lust and love. The transactions of Krishna and Radha are completely different from material lust. Therefore, the author has very clearly distinguished between them. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasinubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam bhangam langayate giram yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay. We'll just read this first verse and then together, and then the next, all the other verses we'll just read quickly, okay? Shri Chaitanya Prasadena Tadrupasya Virnayam Balopi Kurute Shastram Drishtva Vraja Vilasinaha Shri Chaitanya Prasadena Tadrupasya Vinirnayam Balopi Kurute Shastram Dristva Vraja Vilasina Shri Chaitanya Prasadena Tadrupasya Vinirnayam Balopi Kurute Shastram Dristva Vraja Vilasinaha. Shri Chaitanya Prasadena. Api Kurute Shastram Istaparja Vilasinaha. Shri Chaitanya Prasadena. By the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Tat, of him, Rupasya, of the form, Vinirnayam, complete determination, Balaha, a child, Api, even, Kurute, makes, Shastram, the revealed scriptures, Dristva, having seen, Vraja Vilasinaha, who enjoys the pastimes of Braj. By the mercy, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. By the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even a foolish child can fully describe the real nature of Lord Krishna, the enjoyer of the pastimes of Braj, according to the vision of the revealed scriptures. One can ascertain the meaning of this Sanskrit shloka only when one is endowed with the causeless mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Sri Krishna, being the absolute personality of Godhead, cannot be exposed to the mundane instruments of vision. He reserves the right not to be exposed by the intellectual feats of non-devotees. Notwithstanding this truth, even a small child can easily understand Lord Sri Krishna and his transcendental pastimes in the land of Vrindavan by the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glory to Lord Nityananda. All glory to Sri Advaita Acharya. And all glory to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Chatura Shlokera Artha Kaila Vivaran. Pachama Shlokera Artha Shuna Bhakta Gan. I have described the meaning of the fourth verse. Now, O devotees, kindly hear the explanation of the fifth. There's one cable in there that has a quarter-inch thing. I need that here so you can actually adjust this. Someone removed it. You know the cable I'm talking about? You must. Mula shloker artha karite prakash artha lagaite age kahe abas. Just to explain the original verse, I shall first suggest its meaning. Chaturta shlokera artha e kaila sada premanama pracharite e avatara. I have given the essential meaning of the fourth verse. This incarnation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, descends to propagate. No. There's a cable in there that can fit in this, and you can use it to adjust it, or a screwdriver. Descends to propagate. I have given the essential meaning of the fourth verse. This incarnation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, descends to propagate the chanting of the holy name and spread love of God. Satya ehetu kinto eho bairanga, ara eka hetu shuna ache antaranga. Although this is true, this is but the external reason for the Lord's incarnation. Please hear one other reason, the confidential reason for the Lord's appearance. In the third chapter, fourth verse, it has been clearly said that Lord Chaitanya appeared in order to distribute love of Krishna and the chanting of his holy name, Hare Krishna. That was the secondary purpose of Lord Chaitanya's appearance. The real reason is different, as we will see in this chapter. So, sometimes devotees give a lot of verses, and today is one of those days, but so there's a lot of ways we could take this. But we've reached finally the fourth chapter of the Ādi-līlā, which is one of my favorite chapters because of how deep it is. and really it's brimming with a lot of the nectar that the Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas bring us. But before I speak anything, all the devotees, especially like the senior devotees like Subhadra Prabhu and Gopal Pran Prabhu, and all devotees, please make a prayer to Lord Chaitanya and Radha Govinda and Lord Nityananda that I can speak something that's beneficial and in line. And just like the verse we read, that by the mercy of that mercy, even a foolish child can fully describe the real nature of Krishna. Okay, good. So we just went through chapter 3, and the way that the Caitanya-caritāmṛta works is you have the first 14 verses, which are the Mangala-charana, and it's also, the Mangala-charana has even Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes, the Mangala-charana has a few different parts, and one of the parts is describing what the text, the Mangala-charana means the auspicious beginning. So in there he describes, or in any work that we're going to have will have a Mangala-charana in it. And in that, it'll describe what's going to happen in the text. So in those 14 verses, we're going through the different subject matters of the Caitanya-caritāmṛta. And so we've heard about the first verses are about the gurus. So we heard a little bit about that in the first chapter, in the second chapter. And then we had a few verses about the external reason for Lord Chaitanya's appearance. And then now we're on chapter 4, which is going into verses, I believe, 5 and 6 or 6 and 7. I can check that real quick. Where these are the internal reasons, like Krishnadas Kaviraj was saying, the Antaranga and Bahiranga. And so whenever we're trying to understand the motives of someone, like especially like, okay, so Bhagavad Gita says surrender to Krishna. So we want to surrender to Krishna, but we have to know to surrender to Krishna means we should give what Krishna wants. But to understand what someone wants, we have to understand their motivation, their motives, or their and so if we analyze someone's motives, then we can really deeply connect to them. And so, but sometimes that's difficult. Like even for just like Vaishnavas in general, it said that a Vaishnava is sometimes they're unknowable by their activities. They can have very mysterious activities. For example, our Srila Prabhupada, Shama Sundar Prabhu would always say that every day is like a new adventure. You never know really what you're gonna get with Srila Prabhupada. You never know what direction he's gonna go or what new surprise will come. It's like ever fresh. Everything's just always flowing. For example, like they would often ask Prabhupada the same question, and many of the times he would give a different answer. Okay, so one time, Prabhupada, what pleases you the most? It pleases me the most if you distribute my books. And then, a year later, they may ask the same question, Prabhupada, what pleases you most? What pleases me most if you get love of Godhead? Or, he asked also a similar question in the class. How do you know this is the right thing? And everyone was kind of fumbling and like, oh, because you say? And the Prabhupada said, no, because I say, well, who am I? I'm just someone, I could be lying to you. Like, oh, because the Shastra says. And okay, Prabhupada agreed. Yes, because the Shastra says. That's why we believe this stuff. And then like a few months later, same question, and someone who was there at the original place is like, oh yeah, Prabhupada, I know the answer. We believe this because the Shastra said. He's like, the Shastra, that's just some book. Why do you believe the book? And so therefore bewildered them. And then they said, oh, because we realize Krishna in our heart. Yeah, okay, that's right, because you follow the Shastra and you realize Krishna. And then later he even contradicted that to try to get people to a higher understanding, a more deeper understanding. So in this way, sometimes a Vaishnav can be confusing. So what to speak of the people that Vaishnavas worship, Krishna, we're by hearing from Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, by hearing from Srila Prabhupada, who's bringing us this, we're getting, as one devotee said, we're getting a deep insight to the inner psychology of God. And even the last chapter we had a deep insight into the outer psychology of God. You know, he has so many different layers, and we're getting a whole comprehensive view of all of that. Of course, it's also revealed to us that it's impossible to fully understand God because God is infinite. But as much as we can understand, it's being revealed. And this is one of the chapters where a lot of very deep, esoteric, amazing information is being revealed. Um, and then, like the first verse was saying, we need the mercy of Lord Chaitanya to be able to understand any of this. So the way that the CC works is each of these chapters in Ādi-līlā is essentially expanding on just a single verse. So a single verse becomes hundreds and hundreds of verses in these chapters. And so the verse that is expanded upon in this fourth chapter is basically 5 and 6. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, previously they separated themselves. And now these two transcendental identities have again unified in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. Desiring to understand the glory of Radharani's love, the wonderful qualities in him that she alone relishes through her love, and the happiness she feels when she realizes the sweetness of his love, the Supreme Lord Hari, richly endowed with her emotions, appeared from the womb of Srimati Shachi Devi as the moon appeared from the ocean. That's to remind who's ever on breakfast serve out, make sure you get everything ready by 9 a.m. So if someone could check the schedule and send a message to the appropriate personality. So, which is also a part of relishing Lord Chaitanya's movement. So that's the verse, the seed verse that is unpacked into this entire chapter. And we hear a little bit more about it in the summary that Prabhupada's giving us. So we have these 3 internal reasons. Do we remember the 2 external reasons that we already went through in chapter 3? Or you guys were probably doing something else? Should I just tell everyone? Because Advaitacharya was calling him, putting the tulsi, the Ganga water, and the tulsi on the shalagram, and that was, he thought, I can't repay someone who's offering me this, so then I'm offering my own self. And so that call brought Lord Chaitanya, at least externally. And what was the other excuse? Yeah, it was coming time for the Yuga avatar to come. And so because that time was coming, the Lord had to make his appearance. And so, of course, when the avatari, who is the prime person that is making an avatar, when they decide to come, of course, all the other avatars are there. So he said, okay, if I go myself, then it's, it's kind of like, I don't know, this is not really Vaishnava saying, 2 birds with 1 stone. How would we say it? Then you have a good, vegan alternative to that. Yeah, okay, here's a Gita example. Using 1 reservoir of water to fulfill many purposes, rather than going to many different small streams and things. Okay, I like that. So he fulfilled the purpose of answering the call to Sri Advaita. He fulfilled the purpose of doing the Yuga avatar, but those are just excuses. They were, like Prabhupada says, it's just kind of like heavy, that was a secondary purpose. The real reason is different, which means those weren't really the real reason. That's not the reason why he's doing it. They were external or fake reasons. And of course, we're all persons. We all have experiences like this. We may want to do something, and if you're asking your mom for something, you may have an external reason and an internal reason for asking. And someone that's close to you will more readily understand the internal reason. It's said that the closer someone is, the less they need to communicate. Kind of a side point. But so the idea here is that we can, by hearing from the acharyas, we can actually understand the inner psychology of God, that we can understand what his reasonings for doing things. And then what's the purpose of that? If we understand that, we can actually please him. So this chapter is a very amazing chapter. I on these topics, I don't have actual, I can a little bit about what the knowledge is in there, and we'll have to depend on Lord Chaitanya's mercy for the fructification of that knowledge. In the first verse, another way that Caitanya-caritāmṛta works is that in the start of every chapter, you'll notice most of the Caitanya-caritāmṛta is in Bengali, and with these nice singable verses, because it's like an epic, like the Homer's Iliad or the Odyssey, thing like that. And so you can just sing the whole thing, and it can be very easy to memorize. And Prabhupada, in different, I think Bhaktivinoda Thakur or some devotees quipped that in the future people will specifically learn Bengali just so they can study and relish the Caitanya-caritāmṛta and other books like the Chaitanya Bhagavat. But Krishnadas Kaviraj, he's a Kaviraj, he's a great scholar and poet. And so one thing he does is he composes these wonderful Sanskrit slokas, which condense the whole verse, the whole chapter. And so our Sanskrit verse for this fourth chapter is giving a little hint. Sri Chaitanya Prasadena, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, even a foolish child can fully describe the real nature of Lord Krishna, the enjoyer of the pastimes of Vraj, according to the vision of the revealed scripture. So even a child, like Prabhupada once was asking some guest, so who is God? Tell me about God. And he gave this long-winded, waffling answer that was just not going anywhere. Then he turned to little baby Saraswati. Okay, Saraswati, tell me who is God? Krishna. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. It was like, bam, there it is. The little child could easily understand. And whereas sometimes Krishna has the right not to be exposed by the intellectual feats of the non-devotees, but he is exposed by the lotus feats of the pure devotees. And so even a small child can understand this. So, but what are we trying to get into? Prabhupada saying one can ascertain the meaning of the Sanskrit sloka only when one is endowed with the causeless mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So even Krishnadas Kaviraj himself says, I'm about to enter into territories that are not suitable for outsiders. And he's kind of scared. He doesn't want outside people to hear this intimate knowledge. If you have a secret, if you have a friend and you know some secret about your friend, you don't want everyone to know about that secret. So sometimes you have to speak in code to your other friends so they understand what's going on. And so this whole chapter is like being revealed to us, but we won't be able to really understand it until we go deep into Lord Chaitanya's mercy. But that's okay, because that's what this movement is. That's what Prabhupada came to sell and sell to us. So hopefully we can buy it, but we should be willing to pay the right price, because if you pay peanuts, then what are you going to get? Monkeys. But if we pay the full price, then we can get the proper goods. And like Krishna says in the Gita, Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrita mudo yam nabijananti lokamama jamavyayam. So he reserves the right to have his yogamaya samavrita cover him to the mudas, to the foolish, ignorant rascals who are not trying to understand him, or not trying to love him, not trying to go deep into his deep personality. So he'll never be manifest to them. And they will never be able to understand. But for those who are trying to understand him, Atashi Krishna Namani Nabhaved Graham Indrai, Seven Mukho Hijivado, Swayam Eva Sportyada. To those who are endeavoring to serve him, to understand him, starting with the tongue, which means honoring Prasadam and chanting the holy name, then he will reveal himself. Spurti, like Sitaram says, got to get that spurti. What is a spurti? It's when Krishna agrees to descend to our consciousness, to reveal himself to us. And of course, we're so lucky at Sri Sri Radha Govinda Mandir, being residents here, that every day we can get at least to our the level of our consciousness, at least even if we're at the lowest level of consciousness, even the Lord has agreed to appear in this beautiful forms of Radha Govinda standing before us, that we can actually serve ourselves. And as we develop our consciousness more, that relationship will get deeper and deeper. So we can go into, Prabhupada said in the summary, there's 3 reasons why, this is the main topic of this chapter, there's 3 reasons why Krishna appeared. 3 antaranga reasons, internal reasons, confidential reasons, real reasons why he appeared. And they're all intimately connected. So he came to relish the position of Srimati Radharani, to understand the transcendental mellows of himself, and to enjoy the bliss tasted by Radharani. These are the 3 reasons internally that that Lord Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya, with the mood and with the sentiment and the external appearance or the color of Radharani. So we have who's seen our pamphlet, Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure? You've never seen that pamphlet? If you've been in this temple, I hope you've seen that pamphlet. We handed out probably 10,000 of them every year. And well, actually, Ram Rai's a little stingy with them. We have more of the other one on chanting Hare Krishna. But we used to have, we may even only have one box of 600 left, and that's why he doesn't want to put it out so much. We used to have we had a blue pamphlet on chanting Hare Krishna and a red pamphlet, Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure. And so most people have no idea what that means. Like, Reservoir of Pleasure, who is that girl? What's going on here? Yeah. And so they have no idea. Krishna. So therefore, he has a right to conceal his identity. But as we get closer and closer to him, as we become Krishna's devotees more and more, we're revealed to us how wonderful Krishna actually is, how wonderful serving him is, and then we derive more and more satisfaction and bliss from serving him. Then we realize, oh, he actually is the reservoir of pleasure. Like, I just get in contact with serving him and actually trying myself to give him pleasure, I'm connected to so much nectar. Otherwise, the Lord is adokshaja, unapproachable by direct sense perception. But actually, if we get into this process, then we can also approach him by our direct sense perception. Even in these mundane material bodies, like I was saying before, you can get second initiation, and you can go on the altar and directly serve the Lord. It's possible. And we can go even further than that. But that's the mercy that our acharyas are giving us. And so this process of devotional service is meant to rectify and purify and clarify our consciousness and clarify our hearing power. If our consciousness is clarified, then we can come in contact with the Lord. When our hearing is clarified and purified, then we can come in contact with the Lord with our ears. Then we can come in contact and we can see the Lord. We can smell the Lord. We can taste the Lord. All our senses can become uncovered, as it says, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, that we're by this process of Nam Sankirtan or Krishna Sankirtan, Sri Krishna Sankirtan, Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. This process, the process of glorifying Krishna, can purify the mirror of the heart. And with that, our mind can fully, at least to the extent our infinitesimal minds can, actually perceive Krishna. And that's what a sporty is. So that's actually what we do all need, a sporty. We got to get that sporty. And so, and one understanding of Krishna that has to come with that purified mind is that, how is he the reservoir of pleasure? He's the reservoir of pleasure because he's the reservoir of all lovable qualities. He's just amazing at everything par excellence. The word that the Sanskrit literature uses, that Bharat Muni and Rupa Goswami use, is the Vishaya. He has all these pleasurable qualities. So whoever he's with, he's like the ultimate lovable object. So that's what he's the lovable object. Whereas then the Ashraya, which is the position of Radharani, would be basically the ashraya. What does ashraya mean? It means shelter. So we can think of shelter as like a container, like this is a shelter and it's containing all of us. The ashram, this is our ashraya. Ashram comes from the same word. And so Radharani is the shelter or the ashraya of the love she has for Krishna. So Krishna is the lovable person, and Radharani is the person who has the love. So it's enjoyable being the beloved, being Krishna, being the one with all these wonderful loving qualities. But it's if you flip the script, that's what Lord Chaitanya is trying to do. Krishna is trying to flip the script. He's had the experience of being the unlimited enjoyer, the unlimited container of qualities, but now he wants to be the unlimited enjoyed. He wants to be the enjoyer, he wants to be the lover, not the beloved. And so that's one reason why he wants to come. Like when we say Vishaya Chadiya Shuddha Habe Man, everyone knows that bhajan? Gauranga Bolite Habe Pulaka Sharira Hari Hari Bolite Nai Ne Babe Nir. So when will tears come to our eyes when we're chanting Krishna's name? When will we chant Gauranga and become ecstatic? Arakabe Nitai Chan Karuna Hoibe Samsara Vasana Mora Kabe Tuchahabe. And when will we get the mercy of Lord Nityananda, where all of these memories of sense enjoyment will become nothing? And Vishaya Chadiya Kabe Shuddha Man Kabe Hama Herabo Shri Vrindavan. When will our minds become pure? In Vishaya Chadiya. Vishaya, in this term, means like material enjoyment. So we want to give up the position of being the material enjoyment. Right now, we need to flip the script, just like Krishna is flipping the script. Although he's actually the Vishaya, he's actually the absolute enjoyer on whatever he wants to in any way. Like that's just his constitutional position. Well, we're not the Vishayas, but we're trying to be the Vishayas, and that's why we get the joke of our existence. Whatever has happened in our story, it's mostly a comedy from the higher point of view because it just doesn't work. Mostly comedy is when you have something and you didn't expect what was going to happen next, or it was like some funny mismatch. So that's what's happening with us. We're mismatched with this, with existence because we're trying to be the Vishaya, although we're not. But Krishna, on the other hand, he is the Vishaya, but he wants to experience what it means to be the Ashraya. So that's the first reason why he came. And like I was saying, he has all these wonderful qualities to be able to, for someone to appreciate, but he's the one who has the qualities. He wants to see what it's like to appreciate those qualities. So that's the second reason why he came. And then the final thing, and these are all very related, because there's so many wonderful qualities he has, and because he's not in the position of enjoying himself, he doesn't know the bliss of what it's like to enjoy loving him. In other words, the position of Radharani, the bliss that she feels is actually more. And this is the amazing revelation that you'll never get from anywhere unless someone's completely spiritually realized. But most mundane religions don't really have it. But even here, if you just have to get a book, we have the Caitanya-caritāmṛtas in every ISKCON center. You can come and get it, and you can read this and get this revealed to you, that being the beloved is not as good as being the actual lover. Or in other words, being in the position of being the loved is not as good as being the object of love. Being the enjoyer is not as good as being the enjoyed. In other words, being served is one thing, but being the servant is another thing. And that requires Kaviraj Goswami to enter into a discussion of what is lust versus love. And this is also another amazing understanding that we'll never get if we try to learn from the mundane wranglings of our contemporaries. This is only revealed through beautiful, sublime understanding of the transcendent reality. Is what is the difference between love and lust? So if you go to a room full of couples, you ask them all, raise your hand, do you love your, significant other? They're like, I love you, and like, yeah, I love you too. And they, who's ever said I love you to one of their partners, like a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or no one's ever said that? What? Okay, okay, yeah, but the thing is, we didn't actually mean it. At least probably not. I doubt we had pure spiritual motivations, because we're talking about analyzing motivations of people. Um, and if we really had love for someone, it wouldn't be like, oh, like we maybe had something like, I really like being around you, but then the motivation would be, because when I'm around you, it helps me enjoy better, because I feel good the way, the, I want that big muscular man with a big salary and lots of property and servants, because they can make me feel good when I'm with them. Or I want that beautiful girl with all the attractive features, because when I'm with them, they can make me feel good. Or I want, it's 2025, we're in New York. I want that trans person with the rainbow colored hair, because they make me feel good. Either way, it's not actually about love. It's more about I, me, mine. Like, the John Lennon or George Harrison wrote a song about that. It's all just like, even the ahankara, the false ego, just hankara, I am. It's all about me, 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 I. Krishna is the one that can actually be me, 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 I. Where when it's us, it becomes this mundane. It's not love, it's lust. If you were to ask them all to raise their hand and say they love me, okay, you love them, keep your hand up. If I could find a better person for them to be with and would make them more happy, would you be willing to let them go to that other person? Immediately, everyone's hands are going to drop, because they don't actually love them. They love the feeling that they're giving them. And the proof is that whenever there's a abation of that feeling, then you get into cheating and divorces and separation and so many problems. Or if you have a relationship that lasts for a long time, then it's based off more of duty and less of loving reciprocation, and it becomes more or less dry. Like, you like ask an old couple like together, it's like, yeah, it's easier to be with him than to kill myself. So then something like that. So it's not, lust is not just mutual symbiotic pleasure, that you scratch my back, I scratch your back. Love is not that. That's what lust is. So you have to analyze it from the position of consciousness. Lust is for low consciousness, selfish. I get pleasure out of this, so therefore it's good and I want to keep doing it. But if we're talking about love, something on the high level of consciousness, it's completely different. And we don't see that in the material world. However much love songs are written, however many things people have, it's just infatuation. And like Prabhupada said, it mostly ends in sadness and sometimes even ghastly horror scenes. The closest thing we can get, the closest facsimile of love in the material world, is the love of a mother to her child. And this is still not that great, but this is what our acharyas give us. Because the mother will give up sleep and will do so many things and work so hard and just to keep the baby comfortable and growing. And, to the mother, even if the baby poops and pees everywhere, it smells like, nectar and flowers. And they don't mind at all. They can, because they have, it's like, it's duty bound. And even the Bhagavatam says that that's close to love, but because it's based on a false identity, it's also not really love. And also, it's a one-way street. The baby doesn't reciprocate at all. So it's not like, it takes two to tango, as they say. Although it's not two to tango as in, oh, I'm giving you pleasure, therefore you're giving me pleasure, so I'm happy to be around you. And then they're like, yeah, and you're giving me pleasure, so I'm happy to be around you. So now it's, mutually symbiotic. That low consciousness lust is different than the high consciousness of love. In other words, what we're trying to understand here, by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even a foolish child, can fully describe the real nature of Lord Krishna, the enjoyer of the pastimes of Vraj. So we're trying to understand the pastimes of Vraj, or the pastimes of actual real love that are manifest as revealed by the acharyas. And it's incredible. We'll hear in this chapter how it is. Like scientists are looking for the perpetual energy machine, something that never like can give out and never loses energy. But the acharyas have revealed that to us. The actual true the goal of humanity, prema pumarta mahan, prema or real love, is the actual perfect machine. That's why it can exist in eternity. Whatever, if you have two people that are actually in love with people like Radha and Krishna, so Radharani's only existence is for the pleasure of Krishna. Her prime duty, or to understand one of her expansions, Mother Yashoda, to understand the depth of the love, she says she's willing to die unlimited times if it's just to wipe a single bead of sweat off the brow of Krishna, to make his life just a little bit more easy. And so that's the kind of and the existence is just for Krishna's pleasure, not for her pleasure. If she has to endure pain or struggling for the pleasure of the other person, the one that you actually love, then that pain is actually pleasure. It's actually enjoyment. And so similarly, Krishna is trying everything he can to reciprocate with everyone in Vrindavan. So everyone in Vrindavan is just trying to, for the pleasure of Krishna, doing whatever they're doing, and Krishna is trying to reciprocate with all of that. And it becomes this amazing competition where, let's say it's like between me, I'm only happy if Jayant is happy. Jayant, oh, okay, I'm happy that you said that. And then because he becomes happy, I become more happy. And he says, I'm only happy if you're happy. Then because he saw me get happy, because I saw him get happy, he gets more happy. And then if there's actually love, if it's actually a pure relationship, it can infinitely grow and it can last eternally. If it's not, then that's like in the material world, if you like learn about physics and why they say it's impossible to have a perpetual energy machine, because you've got friction and loss of energy in so many different ways. The corollary in a relationship, okay, I was happy the first time I saw them, but then I saw them the second time, and she just wasn't as pretty as I remember. Or whatever it is, everything always fades. His sense of humor now is annoying. Where once it was charming, now it's like fries me out. And that's what happens. But Krishna, because he's ever increasing and so amazing, no one ever gets like, oh, he was handsome yesterday, but not today. No, every single time that he's ever seen, and especially because of Radharani's love is so deep, it becomes a new amazing experience where I've never seen someone so beautiful as that. And I just saw Krishna the day before, and I thought the same thing. That's kind of like every single time one-ups the next time. And it never becomes hackneyed. So this is the eternal, perpetual motion machine that of love that the acharyas have given us, that we have to cultivate ourselves and actually taste and realize. And that brings it to the last point, that when we understand more, then we can actually empathize with them. We were understanding the motivations of Krishna, why he's going down. And Radharani's, she's always struggling to serve Krishna more and more. And Lord Chaitanya is coming in that same mood of Radharani. And so what is he trying to do? It says externally he's trying to spread the chanting of Hare Krishna, because that's the yuga dharma of the age. But actually the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra doesn't come like to give the love of the residents of Vrindavan every single yuga. Sometimes it's just a little more generic Vaikuntha Prema Nam, some different mantra that comes, or that's not fully invested with that energy. And so this specific mantra is actually Lord Chaitanya, like what is Radharani always worried about? How to serve Krishna more. And so if she has more helpers to help serve, then she can do it more. So this mantra is actually a clarion call from the spiritual world to bring more servants to Krishna to expand his enjoyment. And so that's a struggle. And I actually said that if you combine all the suffering in the material world, it doesn't equal the suffering that Radharani feels in her relationship with Krishna. Because what is her suffering? If her pleasure is Krishna's pleasure, then what is her suffering? Krishna's displeasure, or the knowledge that Krishna's pleasure isn't going to increase. So what makes her happy is knowing that, yes, Krishna's pleasure is going to increase. So that's really what the secret of the Sankirtan movement is. That it's, the nectar we've always been waiting for is actually empathizing with Srimati Radharani's position, empathizing with Lord Chaitanya, because Lord Chaitanya is Krishna empathizing with Srimati Radharani's position, and going out and trying to get ourselves and as many people as we can to go and to actually serve Krishna like we should be. And so that's what we have for the next Saturdays, for the next few months probably of this chapter. It depends on how fast Prabhu Vishnu decides to go through the verses. But even if we do 6 verses a time, there's like almost 300 verses here. So we got a few months probably in this chapter, or at least something like that. And now we've reached 30 seconds. If one comment can be made, and I can just repeat it because I don't think the mic is ready. No problem.
I just thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. That's a competition. Radharani's trying to love Krishna more, and Krishna gets more lovable.
Yeah. And then the second thing, just, well, obviously in the mundane world, man and woman, husband, wife, whatever, it's highly based on lust. I also want to give kind of from a Grihastha perspective too. Like if there's a triangle and Krishna's at the top and husband is on one side and wife is on the other side, you can see as the closer they are to Krishna at the top, the closer the husband and the wife will be the man.
Yeah, that's a good point. If we're talking about material relationships, they're all based on lust. And the Grihastha ashram is a relationship that's going closer to love, because all of us are situated in lust, and the idea is we need to purify our lust into love. And so one of the different ways that the Vedas give us is to go through and have a relationship with Krishna at the center. And the more, like Madhurya Ras was saying, the more that we have Krishna at the center, the more that relationship can get purified. And as we see, most of Lord Chaitanya's associates, he had some brahmachari and sannyasi associates, like Adadhar Pandit and so on and so forth, Rupa Goswami, but many of them were householders. And so it can either be, some of those householders were nitya siddhas, so they didn't have any lust. It wasn't the purpose of lust to be in that relationship at all. One of the most wonderful purposes of grihastas and powerful ways that grihastas can actually preach, like a brahmachari can go preach their entire life, and how many devotees will they make? But a grihasta can have one or two. Imagine, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had one kid. Well, he had many kids, but one Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because he was based in love, his relationship wasn't based in lust with his wife. And that kid, if you can call him that, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parajikacharya Stotra Shat Shri Shri Shrimat, delivered all of us. I mean, Prabhupada and all his god brothers and all the 50,000 disciples in India, plus all the waves he made in India, plus what all those disciples did, including what Srila Prabhupada did. So that's the ultimate power of the Grihastha ashram. And you can even look in Prabhupada's example. Though all those sannyasis of Prabhupada's movement couldn't, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's movement couldn't do much, but then you have Yamuna Devi and Tamal Krishna and this group of 6 Grihastas go to England, and they start meeting George Harrison and making huge headways, doing something that a sannyasi in the previous generation couldn't do. And so, yes, now we've gone 3 minutes over. I'm very sorry. Hopefully the person who's designated for prasadam has everything ready, so we can now Atashi Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Grim Indre Sevan Muke Hi Jiva Do. We can do seva with our tongue by being in consciousness that we're not on the level of just eating consciousness. We're not just on the animal lower consciousness, but we're on higher consciousness, thinking of God, and that this is God's remnants, and we're connecting with His mercy, because by the Sri Chaitanya Prasadena, by the mercy, then we can understand all these things, which also means eating the prasadam or honoring it in a better, more exact language. Grantaraj Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta Ki Jai, all the Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.